Hey YouTubers, this is the Financial Survival Center. I thought this was kind of a cool picture, sort of reminded me of somebody who might be drowning in debt, and I also thought it might attract more attention than that nasty word debt. But what I'm talking about today is a new book and really more of a resource that I came up with called Mind Over Money, Painlessly Getting Out of Debt and Into Prosperity. This project came from somebody hiring me to help young couples in one of the states in the union. I don't want to say the name, but get out of debt and into prosperity. And they said basically go ahead and share the work that you provided for us with everybody else. And so that's what I've done. I developed a book for it, and I'm going to share some of the tips and the basic things that I'll be covering within that guide. So let's get started right away. 7 tips from my book, Mind Over Money, Getting Painlessly Out of Debt and Into Prosperity. Tip number 1 is that your mental and physical health is priority number 1. Everybody knows what it feels like to be depressed about money problems. I certainly have been there myself. And if we let that win out over us, then we're going to continue to have money problems for the foreseeable future. But if we can manage our mind, and that's one of the main things I talk about in my guide, are the tricks and the tips for managing your mind so that you can deal with things mentally, because it is enormously stressful to be in debt. And also we can let that affect our physical health in a negative way, and then we won't really have the strength, either mentally or physically, to deal with what we need to deal with to get out of debt, and to view it as a temporary situation that we could certainly overcome because others have overcome it for us. So that is one of the key things, is number 1, watch out for your mental and physical health, and that translates to a number of different steps that I talk about, which can generally be called being kind to yourself, avoid beating yourself up, and be aware that your job every morning when you get up is to talk to yourself positively in a lot of ways, and to keep yourself upbeat about the challenges you face. And I give reasons and some tips on how to accomplish that, because it's easier said than done, no doubt about it. Tip number 2 is you're not alone. Most of America and much of the world is in debt, and right now there are many, many wealthy people that were in debt at one time or another. In fact, the list of people who have gone bankrupt sounds like a who's who's list of people who have become rich and famous in some ways. It's not always the case, but it certainly has been the case in the United States that it's one of those phases that people go through, and there are a lot of reasons that people get in debt. Some of them are good reasons, including such things as maybe student loans, or maybe taking a risk on a business or something like that where you try to do something positive, and some of them are not such good reasons, where you may have taken out a car loan that was more than you could afford, or a mortgage that you could more than you could afford. But guess what? A lot of other people have done the same thing and have kind of been spanked for it, and so you're not judged as harshly, and that's an important thing, so that you can definitely improve your situation and move forward and be accepted. Tip number 3 is all credit card debt can be negotiated down by as much as 30 to 70%. They won't tell you that, but generally that is the case. Now, you have to go through some steps to do it. I talk about that in my book, but that is an enormous, enormous help for most people. So if credit card debt is one of your issues, there are ways that are completely legal, that you work with a credit card company, but you can negotiate your debt down significantly. Tip number 4 is each state has a lot of resources for helping you cover the costs of the basics: food, utilities, shelter, sometimes even cell phones, transportation, all kinds of things. Amazing numbers of resources, and it is not strictly from the government. I include some lists in the book. In fact, I would say that is one of those things where you kind of buy the guide, and for a certain amount of money, and then get literally hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in assistance from sources you had no idea were out there. I spent a long time researching this, and was really shocked at the amount of resources that are out there, and a lot of people just don't know. And in fact, they get sucked into the first 1 or 2 websites that they come to that claim to help for debt or things like that, and it doesn't always work out like they want to, where these are sources that are charitable, or were set up by state agencies, or were set up by companies or something like that, that are not strictly profit oriented and help out with expenses. Tip number 5, we are also in the best period for making an income from almost anywhere at any time, and I talk about that as well. Not get rich quick schemes at all. In fact, these are hard work, just like a lot of anything else that you want to make money at. But these are the ability to make a couple of extra $100 per week rather, and that may be all you need to get over the hump. And you can do it anywhere you want almost. I cover a lot of them that are evaluated that are 100% solid ways of making money, and it doesn't require a lot of skill or anything. It's relatively basic stuff. But it's another aspect about the guide that is one of those things where it pays you for buying it essentially, because there's so many tips and different sites that I found that are really, really beneficial. Tip number 6, this is a big one. A lot of people mentally beat themselves up for being in debt or bankruptcy or things like that, or even unemployed. But you have to realize that that's become very common these days, especially with the real estate phase. A lot of people got wiped out when the real estate crashed. Unemployment numbers are dramatically higher than what we're hearing on the news. So a huge percentage of people are unemployed. So it's not something to beat yourself up over. Easier said than done, but I talk about that and I make it obvious that if you're beating yourself up over it, then what you're doing is you're basically inventing a case against yourself, whereas a lot of people are in the same situation. It's not like we're at 5% unemployment, and if you're unemployed, then you really want to be unemployed. No, it's a different situation these days, and that should make you feel better mentally. Tip number 7, the bottom line on getting out of debt is that it is an effort of self-mastery of your mind, because there's going to be tremendous stress about it. Going to want to run away from things, very tempting thing to do, but mastering your mind and dealing with things directly is the way to go, and that's, again, easier said than done, and I talk about some of the tips and tricks and methods of doing that so that you can become stronger through the process and eventually get out of debt completely and be free, and also be a much stronger person in the process. And in some ways it can be looked at as one of the best training periods you've ever gone through, because it really developed an internal core strength that allows you to get through anything, whether it's a financial crisis or emotional crisis or a health crisis or a social crisis. Anything like that is being developed through this process, and that's one of the things I talk about. That self-mastery is the key to getting through debt and painlessly out of debt and into prosperity. Now, last but not least, I want to recommend that anybody who's interested and has some issues with debt, or just wants to get a firmer perspective on how to get into prosperity, because that's really where we want to go. We don't want to just get out of debt. We want to get into prosperity, and the fact that it is the mind that controls that, I would recommend you go to my site, financialsurvivalcenter.com, and the book appears on the right-hand side, and just go ahead and order that. It will be immediately delivered to you, and it is filled with just step-by-step tips. It even includes a lot of spreadsheets for helping track your progress, and I am also including a membership in my site with that, where I post tips on investments and different returns that you can, once you're able to get out of debt somewhat and you have some money to invest, it will certainly be beneficial to you in that regard. So if debt is a challenge for you, I recommend you go over to my site, financialsurvivalcenter.com, and take a look at the book. If it looks like it'll be beneficial for you, please go ahead and order it. And as I mentioned, it includes membership in my email newsletter and everything like that, so it continues to pay benefits and will be updated regularly, and I definitely appreciate you watching this video. Thank you so much.